Hi, in this video I am going to show you how to sew your shingles on the roof and the clapboards on the side of the house. Now you can use different strips or you can use the same strips for your roof and the side of your house. You don't have to make it in Christmas fabric. You can make a beach house, or you can make a log cabin, or you can make a house, a white house. It doesn't matter. The first thing that you're going to do is, if you're making a roof, and we're going to do the roof first, if you're making the shingles on the roof from different fabrics, you want to lay them out in the order that you want them to appear on the roof. If you're making a roof with the same fabric, it doesn't matter what order they're in. So I have started the roof here. What you're going to do is you're actually going to make two different pieces for the roof, one for the front and one for the back. And you start by sewing a strip of fabric to two pieces of interfacing. It just makes it go quicker that way. So place your folded 2.5 inch strip on the bottom edge of your interfacing. You want the folded edge of the strip to match the bottom edge of your interfacing. Sew that on with a 1/4 inch seam all the way across, so you'll sew to here, butt your second interfacing strip right up next to it and continue to sew. Then once you've finished sewing that first strip on, you'll draw lines. These are guidelines for placement of your subsequent strips. So this next strip will be placed right on that line, and those lines are drawn 1/2 inch apart, but the first one is drawn 1/2 inch above the raw edges of the first strip that you sewed on. You have to sew the first strip on first to give you that guide. Then I'm going to take this to the machine and I'm going to sew the second strip on. So we'll move right over to the sewing machine. And you're going to sew that on with a 1/4 inch seam. So you can place the strip a little bit before your interfacing strip. You'll trim those off later. Place the raw edges on that guideline and sew on with a 1/4 inch seam. Now once you get to where the two pieces join, make sure that they're butt right up next to each other and just continue to sew. Sew right through to the end. Now you can clip this excess fabric off now, or you can just leave it there and clip it later. So that's how you sew those pieces on. And again, it's just like chain piecing. So you're just going to sew one piece of fabric to both pieces of interfacing. Just makes it go quicker. So I'm going to go back over to the table. This is what it's going to look like when it's all done. All of your pieces are sewn on. And then you're just going to flip it over to the back. Pull those excess threads over. And then you're going to trim all the excess fabric even with your interfacing. And then to trim the center of it between the two pieces of interfacing, you'll just bend it, and then you'll cut through all the layers of fabric. You don't want to cut your interfacing, so there's one side of the roof. And then the last thing that you're going to do is you're going to trim all the excess. Off the end. Now you can do that with a rotary cutter, but it's just as easy to do it with your scissors. So there are your two roofs all done. And now I'm going to move on to doing the sides and the end of the house. It's a little bit more complicated because there are 4 pieces to that. And I'll show you here. Here I've sewn on all the pieces, and I'm going to show you how to sew those pieces on using this right here where I've drawn all my lines. You can see from the back that there are 4 separate pieces. You've got a front, a back, and 2 ends. You'll start the front and back. The lower the bottom of the front, the windows are closer to the bottom, so the very first strip you'll want to put on your interfacing, and you'll want to put it on the side where the windows are closer to the bottom. So on this one, I've sewn on the first 2 strips, and again, we're basically chain piecing them on, where we're sewing the strips on to the first piece, second piece, third piece, and so forth. And I will do that. I will do one for you because I want to show you. We're going to sew it. We're going to continue to sew right over the window opening. So I'm going back to the sewing machine. And this is my next strip that I want to sew on. And again, don't put the strip on right at the very edge. You can have a little excess there. So I'm sewing it on, and I am sewing right over that window opening. Your sewing machine may have a little bit different sound as it sews over that window opening. Again, you're just going to sew it straight across. When you get to where the 2 pieces are next to each other, make sure that they're butt right up next to each other and that the lines that you've drawn a 1/2 inch apart sort of line up with one another. Now notice you have quite a long strip at the end. Right. You can clip that off, but you want to save it, and I'll show you why. Take this piece off of here. So we're going back to the table. Now, go ahead and sew all the way up so that you've covered the front and the back, the 2 front and back pieces. You'll cut these off. So just fold this in half and cut, just like you did the 2 roof pieces apart. So cut very carefully. Try not to cut through the interfacing. If you nick it a little bit, that's okay. So, and then you're going to cut those 2 pieces apart and trim the ends, just like you did the roof. Don't worry about the windows yet. Next step is you need to finish placing the strips on the top of the peaked part of the ends. The excess pieces that you cut off, you're going to use those, and you're going to sew one on, another one, and so forth all the way to the top. Now, it is very likely that you will not completely cover the top. You're going to sew that last piece on, but this is going to have binding over the top of it. So if you don't sew these all the way to the top, that's okay. Once you've sewn them all on, you're going to flip these to the back. You're going to trim off the excess. You're going to fold this in half, clip this, but you're also going to clip the excess along the peak. So that's it for this step.